Good evening. It's 6:30 p.m. on Monday, April the 27th, 2020, and I now call the Winton City School Board of Education meeting to order. We don't have flags in front of us, but I'm asking us to please say the Pledge of Allegiance together just as a part of order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so that was kind of difficult, but anyway, we got through that. Mr. Seymour, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Mrs. Ruggless?
Present.
Mr. Birdie?
Present.
Dr. Cupoletti?
Present.
Mr. McGowan?
Present.
Dr. Johnson?
Present. Okay, as you can see from our meeting this evening, it's being conducted via Zoom. I'm online on the phone. The Waycross Community Media is on site with Superintendent at his location. And this is not our normal way of doing business, but because of everything that's going on, this is the way we're doing it for now. There is a recess on the agenda for item 2.01. We're going to go ahead and skip that recess. There's no need for that. It is our intent to be as thorough as possible in these Board of Education proceedings. However, we will forego any public comments at this time due to the format of this meeting. Please direct your attention to Board Policy 0169.01 regarding the public participation in board meetings. Now, if you have anything that you think is of concern, I'm talking to my community now, please feel free to send us an email and we will respond to that. Having said that, I would like to yield the floor now to Superintendent Smith at this time. Superintendent Smith, you have the floor.
I have to go back and make
Say that again.
You need to temporarily suspend Board Policy 169.01 by board action.
Oh, so we need to have a vote on that?
Please.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to suspend the Board Policy 0169.01 for this meeting.
Second it.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. All in favor? Oh, please, Mr. Seymour, please call the vote.
Mrs. Ruggless?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. We will now move past the agenda items. I do not believe we have anyone on the line from the Winton Woods Teachers Association, which is 4.01, or 4.02, which would be comments from the Ohio Association of Public School Employees. Therefore, the next item on the agenda, I want to turn it over to Mr. Smith.
Madam President and Board, I wanted to make sure that the public in our virtual meetings understood some of the updates that we have. And thank you, Mr. Seymour, for giving me your slot temporarily. But we wanted the public to know that, and this information is going to come back again through Mrs. Martin and Dr. Ragland, but I wanted the public to hear it as many times as possible. We've distributed over 3,200 Chromebooks for our students to use in the virtual experience. We've served over 62,000 meals. We're also working with a graduation team to create a virtual school graduation. We were hoping at some point in time that the governor would have lifted some of the mandates, but as far as the social gathering, those issues are still there. And the high school community wanted to make sure that graduation was as close to the May 21st date as possible. In addition to that, our executive team, we're making phone calls to all parents and teachers with our regular log that we are using as our data file. And then we also are making phone calls to students that live in the district, but they attend elsewhere. We do have kids on open enrollment from other districts, but to another place, another location. But we wanted to make sure that those students did know, because they live in our community, that we're still contacting them. We also have a group of students that are homeschooled. We're contacting them as well because they're still part of our community. So we wanted to make sure that there was some basic conversations that were taking place, that everybody knew what some of our basic plans were, the graduation. Then after Mr. Seymour does his piece with the financial report, Mrs. Martin and Dr. Ragland will come back and they will tell us, give us specifics about how we're going to be graded for third quarter, how we're going to use fourth quarter grades, and how we are also going to use third and fourth quarter to young people eligible for sports. I think the community realizes that in order to be a first quarter participant, you must have strong fourth quarter grades. And since our fourth quarter has been altered due to COVID-19, we have an alternative plan so that young people won't lose opportunities. So Dr. Johnson and board, that's my overview. Are there any questions at this point?
No, just one thing. So they're going to come back later in the meeting under the superintendent's update and give us more details about that?
As soon as Mr. Seymour is finished with his financial report, they're going to give us some very strong specifics about how kids are graded and doing the virtual experience, and how you can strengthen your third quarter grade through a fourth quarter experience. Okay.
Okay. All right, good. Board, are there other comments or questions for Mr. Smith? Okay, not having heard any, we will move on with agenda item 5.01, which is the approval of minutes as presented. Board, unless you see any necessary changes at this time, a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, so who made that motion?
John Cupoletti.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I can't see. My Zoom is still not up, so. Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions for discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call the vote?
Sure. Mrs. Ruggless,
Aye.
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan's,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson.
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. Our next item on the agenda is 6.01, our treasurer's report for financial statements for March 2020. Mr. Seymour, you have the floor.
I'm basically just going to share with you that we are still on target with our budget. You have the revenues and the receipts in front of you for the year to date, for the month to date. But also, I hope you were able to see under administrative attachments that I submitted to you the third quarter report through March. And just to point out that our revenues, our expenditures have not exceeded 2% of the prior year's first three quarters. And I didn't know if you'd have any questions about that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Seymour. Board, are there any questions for Mr. Seymour? Okay, with no objections being heard, then we'll let the financial statements for the month of March 2020 be submitted for audit. The next item on the agenda is 7.01, which is the treasurer's recommendation of investments for March. Mr. Seymour, you have the floor.
Our investments for the month of March, to be honest with you, did quite well. The report's not in front of me. It's in my office. I'm with the superintendent. If you have any questions from the attachment, because I can't bring it up.
Okay.
Board docs. If you have any questions, as you see it, they're attached in board docs. I apologize. I don't have it in front of me and I can't bring it up right now.
No, we had $100
Bringing things up to approval.
in interest income. It looks like, Randy.
Sure. Would you go ahead and report it for me, Mr. Brody?
It looks like we had almost 28,000 from the general fund in money market interest income. And then as far as the building fund was concerned, it was around $113,000 for a total of 141.
141,034.
Most of which was, Mr. Smith just brought it up for me, but great job, Mr. Brody.
Okay, do you want to add something to that, Mr. Seymour?
No, thank you. That's the
Okay.
complete report. Just the total and then how much was general and how much was bond, as Mr. Brody stated.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Seymour, and thank you, Mr. Birdie, and Mr. Smith for bringing it up on the screen. Board, a motion would be in order to approve this. Hello, did I lose the line? A motion would be in order?
I'll make a motion to approve the investment report.
I'll
Thank you.
second.
Who seconded it?
Mr. McGowan.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. It's been motioned and seconded. Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Yes, thank you. Mrs. Ruggless,
Aye.
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson.
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. So the next item on the agenda is 7.02, which is the treasurer's recommendation, which is the resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. Mr. Seymour, you have the floor.
Yes, as you recall, back in January at the organizational meeting, you adopted the tax budget. And at this time, and then we submitted that to the Hamilton County Auditor. And at this time, they have established the rates and the amounts that will be collected based on our current levies. The only thing I wanted to point out is that since we do not know the result of the March election yet, that has been put on your amounts and rates as a pending levy
Okay.
for 6.95 mils.
So this can be changed depending on the outcome of that election?
Well, due to the delay in the levy and the results, we would have typically have known, and it would have been definitely on or not on. So
Right.
Dusty, Hamilton County Auditor, listed it as pending.
Okay.
Because these
Okay.
are required to be approved, by the end of April to get to the state for taxation.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Seymour. Board, a motion would be in order.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion at this time? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Sure. Mrs. Ruggless,
Aye.
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson.
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 8.01, which is the reports of the superintendent, which is a first read of and a new revised policy. There's one new policy and 4 revised policies that are in this particular agenda item. Mr. Smith, you have the floor.
One of the things that we have been working on for several years, I think everybody's familiar with the IEP, Individual Students Education Plan. Well, we're actually going to move forward on a action or education plan for every student in the district, and this will be an individual academic plan. And this falls right in line with 5460.02. This is the new policy, and that's why I'm taking a little time with it, because since it's new, you guys have not seen it before. And one of the major parameters of the policy is procedures for identifying students at risk. So it reads, the superintendent will develop and implement procedures for identifying at-risk students enrolled in grades 9 through 12. Procedures must also include a process to identify at-risk students before they enter 9th grade. What the state is realizing is students are falling way off track once they hit the 9th grade factor. And so having a policy in place and also developing a graduation plan and also the criteria for identifying students at risk actually puts us in a better position to making sure that students get all the support that they need. And then the final piece is the parents' notice as well as the interventions and supports. So I wanted you guys to kind of know some of the details of it before we move forward. The other ones are actually, remember, these are just your first read. So they will come back again in May. And the other one is the revised policy 3120.05, professional staff, employment of personnel in summer school and community education, and revised policy 3120.08, professional staff, employment of personnel for co-curricular, extracurricular activities. And then there's another revision for 4120.08, classified staff, employment of personnel for co-curricular, extracurricular activities. And then finally, 5460, students' graduation requirements. The graduation requirements are basically the same as they were before. Students need 22 credits, but we're also trying to make sure that we implement the field of study where students are doing their service learning projects with more fidelity than they had before. So are there any questions regarding the first reads of those policies?
Okay, it sounds like nobody has any questions. Of course, if you have any questions, you know you can address them to Mr. Smith directly. And to reiterate what he has said, these are first reads. They're informational at this point. However, we will be voting on these very policies at our next meeting, our regular board meeting. So be sure to take a look at them in between now and then, and we can get our questions out to Mr. Smith and get them answered, okay? All right. So the next item on the agenda is 8.02, which is the facilities update. And Mr. Smith, I don't know if Mr. Denny is along with you here. I'm not online, so I can't see the faces, but you all have the floor. Mr. Denny is our Executive Director of Business Affairs, so you all have the floor.
Denny, you ready?
Yes, sir. Thanks, Mr. Smith. So thank you so much, and good evening, board. Really appreciate the opportunity to share some progress with our buildings. They are really coming along. I know that you have before you the weekly blitz as well as a construction update, but I thought I'd just, by way of review for anyone that might be in the community tuning in to listen to this, this board meeting, that this information can be seen along with a vast array of other information on our district website. That's www.wintonwoods.org, and just scroll down to the lower right-hand corner and click on construction updates. And that's updated every week, actually. So we encourage everybody to check that out. But just to hit some highlights, I had the opportunity of being on site a couple times in the last month, and as recently as this past Thursday. And the 712 building is really, really moving. With the current concerns, of course, with COVID-19, they've altered a bit of the processes they use. They've increased cleanliness. They've increased site sanitation, including sanitizing tools, variety of countermeasures to help keep everybody on the work site safe. Social distancing is the biggest thing, but they've also been able to continue progress, and I'm thrilled to be able to report that we're still on budget and we're still on schedule, which is exciting. So I'm sure people in the community would be happy to hear that as well as all of our staff and everyone represented on this particular video call. So we're excited with what we see in the construction updates blitz. Again, that's on the website, or again, you have it before you, or can check it later if you'd like. You can see that we're getting a lot of exterior brick installed. It looks really, really good. The masons on both jobs are doing a very nice bit of work, especially the glazed brick that you'll see at the entryway. That's now visible at the K6. It looks better than I imagined, if I can say that. It really looks nice, and hopefully you'll get a chance to see that in person in the not too distant future, pending developments and how things continue to go. But excited about the progress that's being made. Excited that the buildings are getting enclosed, so that means we can open up with painting, with casework, with electrical cable pulls. So there's really a tremendous amount of progress. I think the community can feel proud about the subs and the CMs and the entire construction team and everybody at the district level that's supporting all that work. So again, thanks for the opportunity. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Smith, and if he or any of the board members have any questions, I'll be happy to do my best to answer any of those.
This is Mr. Denny, board. This is the superintendent. Mr. Denny, you mentioned that we are on budget, under budget. Which one?
So we're still slightly under, Mr. Smith. We have remaining, yes, sir. We have remaining contingency funds for both buildings, as well as that's hard contingency, soft contingency, as well as the construction manager's contingency. Those items still have funds in them. Those funds are not expended, and so we're on budget. In fact, counting contingency funds, we're slightly under budget if you want to include those funds.
Excellent, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Denny and Mr. Smith. This is great news to hear moving forward in our building process, even amongst all the other issues and the concerns that we're having, that our buildings are still, someone asked me if they were still working, and I said that I thought they were because I could see progress being made and I could see the gates being opened up at the high school. So this is exciting news moving forward, that our buildings are still in progress and on target and under budget. Everybody likes to hear that, under budget, all the contingencies still in place. So this is great news to hear at this time. The next item on our agenda is 9.01, which is the agenda of for the superintendent's recommendations or personnel schedules. Mr. Smith, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam President. The recommendation is to approve the personnel schedules for Schedule A, resignations, Schedule B, personnel employment certificated, and Schedule C, personnel employment support staff.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Board, a motion would be in order at this time.
I'll make a motion to accept the personnel schedules as presented.
Second it.
Thank you. It's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion at this time? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Mrs. Ruggles,
Aye. I'm sorry.
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson.
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 9.02, which is the resolution for National Teachers Appreciation Week for May the 4th through the 8th, 2020. I would like to read the resolution and then board a motion to approve the to approve the resolution will be in order. So I'm going to read the resolution for National Teachers Appreciation Week. And I think that we all can agree that under these circumstances where parents have had to become teachers, that we seem to appreciate them more than ever before. But here's the resolution for National Teachers Appreciation Week, May the 4th through the 8th, 2020. Whereas the week of May 4th through the 8th, 2020 is National Teachers Appreciation Week. And whereas public schools have been the gateway to success for every generation of Americans. And whereas a strong, effective system of public school education for all children and youth is essential to our democratic system of government. And whereas public schools are at work shaping the future for a whole new generation of young Americans who will take their places in education, business, industry, and government. And whereas no other profession has so great an opportunity to make a lasting and life-changing impact on the lives of so many. And whereas teachers empower, inform, teach, enlighten, share, enrich, create, motivate, mentor, and touch the minds of those students they have entrusted with them. And whereas it is appropriate for the Winton Woods City School District to pay tribute to the teaching profession as a whole and to recognize teachers for their dedication and for their commitment to challenge and educate the youth of our schools and community. Therefore, be it resolved that the Winton Woods City School Board of Education formally designates the week of May the 4th through the 8th, 2020 as National Teachers Appreciation Week, adopted this day, 27th day of April, 2020. Board, I will now entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution Teacher Appreciation Week, May 4th through the 8th, 2020.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion?
Dr.
Seeing none,
Johnson,
Yes, I'm sorry.
your vote will go through, but I do have a question after the board makes their vote.
Okay, all right. Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Mrs. Ruggless,
Aye.
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson.
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. And Mr. Smith, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam President and board. I think you guys would all agree that this should probably be National Teacher Appreciation Year, based on all the virtual work that the teachers have had to do to keep preparing young people to move forward and to be prepared for the next grade. I think this may be, Dr. Johnson, if you don't mind, this would be a good place to put the teaching and learning executives in place so that they can kind of give an overview about what the work is going to look like before we do the two resolutions on National School Nurse Day and National School Nutrition Employee Week, if that's in your appetite.
Absolutely, please. Whichever one you want to go first, please take the floor.
Okay, Mrs. Martin, are you ready?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Smith and Dr. Johnson. I just kind of wanted to give an update overview of the virtual learning that's happening within the district. And what our goal is to maintain a culture of learning as schools are closed, but learning continues. So what we did was actually put together a virtual learning plan that actually helps the families identify what the students could be doing throughout the course of the day as they navigate through the assignments and the virtual connections that they have with their teachers. So the when we entered or distributed the Chromebooks, we made sure that each family received the virtual learning for grades 2 through 6. And the virtual learning plan will also be placed on the website so the families can access it there as well. And what we're doing, especially with our elementary level, is making sure that the families have some idea of how they can actually navigate throughout their students' day, trying to make sure that we give them opportunities to have at least 3 or more hours of core academic instruction or subjects daily. Within that plan, we just kind of identify the amount of time to spend on reading, to take a brain break, writing, physical activity, math, another brain break, science, social studies, music, and drama. So just giving them ideas of how they can navigate through. Also within the scope of our website, we have information that they can navigate to connect with their teachers within the various buildings. So we wanted to make sure that they were able to do that as well. With our preschool and kindergarten, as well as first grade, we are able to navigate them with Class Dojo and using Google Classroom. And the preschool actually developed their site alongside ours, so they're able to actually be in front of the students and provide instruction on a daily and weekly basis. The students actually can navigate through the remote opportunities and be engaged and participate via Zoom sessions, Google sessions, virtual meetups, as well as Classroom Dojo and Google Classroom at the elementary or primary levels. And with saying all of this, we know that, our students are going to be engaged and they're going to participate in the remote opportunities provided. And the students within K through 6 will not actually earn a grade lower for fourth quarter than they received in third quarter. And in doing this, actually making sure that our third grade students will be promoted to fourth grade. And with that action being done, we would provide a level of support for the students as fourth graders and also offer them a robust opportunity to learn and grow in the summer. Are there any questions?
No, not for me. So this would just pretty much guarantee that our third graders are going to, well, not just the third graders, but all of our students are going to continue on to their next grade based on what their grade was at the end of the third quarter.
Yes, that is correct.
So what happens if there was a student who was struggling a little bit in third quarter? Is that the student that might be suggested for summer school or additional help during the summer?
Well, the students that and that student definitely can be one of the ones that are identified to attend summer school. But the students that didn't necessarily make the proficient score on that third grade reading assessment would be the first to be identified to attend the summer enrichment and program we're going to develop and offer for our families.
Doc, there's no additional testing that we could use to verify that the student is cleared and transitioned to the fourth grade because the state is holding back all testing. So the teaching and learning department has a very creative plan that says we're going to create a robust summer program. That's why it was so important to get the Chromebooks to the children so that they can start earlier than later in order to have a great summer experience. Moving kids to the next grade is one piece of the pie, but moving them with a level of something that we really need to make sure in order for them to have the social skills as well as the academic skills to be able to keep progressing in the district. Otherwise, if you move them one grade and they are not adequately prepared, it's just a matter of time before they struggle. And what we're trying to do at this point is to eliminate the struggle, to give them the opportunity to be able to move with their peers academically and socially, so that we don't have a large group of students being retained because of no fault of their own.
So,
Yeah.
so will there be perhaps some testing at the beginning of the fourth grade? Of the students who not necessarily were having a difficulty in the third quarter, but just to kind of check in to see where they are now that they're in the fourth quarter, because as Mr. Smith said, this is to no fault of their own. And how do we just make sure that none of our kids are falling between the cracks because they did good in the third quarter, but did they have any summer learning loss? Did they,
Ms.
Well,
Roberts, that's a good point, because we're talking about, if you look at the months of transitional services, we're talking about 5 months without education in its original format. And so we have to figure out how to gaps in that learning, because some kids, the reason they have fourth quarter in an educational environment is so the kids can strengthen themselves and be better prepared to go into the first quarter. So 4 quarters are very, very essential. We can't just skip it and say, well, we only had 3, so that's all to it. That would be a detriment to everybody's educational system.
and
So there
as
will be,
the student.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Martin. Go ahead.
No, we'll also make sure that those students that didn't necessarily score proficient, when they do become fourth graders, they're the first ones that are actually identified to get title support, which is an additional support throughout the school day as they navigate that fourth grade year, because we want them to be successful. We want them to be prepared for the next level. And once we get the MAP assessment results back in the fall, I do believe it would be either September-ish that they'll be assessed, or October. We'll be able to really be able to give them the necessary support needed to get them on grade level or above grade level.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for Mrs. Martin at this time? Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Martin. Mr. Smith,
Yes.
you had the next person.
Dr. Ragland is up to give an overview of what's going to happen with grade 7 and 12. And board, please keep in mind, even though we're not specifically targeting a particular group, these plans are also inclusive of what happens with students with disabilities as well. Dr. Ragland?
Thank you, Superintendent. I just want to address the board and talk about our plans for 7-12. I think because of this unprecedented time, our district leadership wanted to address the reality of making equitable decisions around grades. So we've completed 3 quarters of grading this school year, and the challenge was to promote learning opportunities while ensuring that our students wouldn't be injured around our grading process. So how do we help them through this fourth quarter? And so district leadership brainstormed, and we decided to use third quarter grades as our semester grade. This means we're using that quarter grade also to determine athletic eligibility as well as the semester grade. So because we're committed to providing learning opportunities throughout the year, we set the expectation with our teaching staff that they would continue to give students feedback and work towards mastery for every assignment. So, for example, if a student received a grade of C in the third quarter for a grade, but in the fourth quarter, they completed 50 to 74% of their work during this quarter, then that work could then boost their third quarter grade and increase it by one grade level. So they're still learning in fourth quarter. We're not hurting our students in our grading process. We're motivating them internally to want to learn and to want to do better by using the fourth quarter grade to help them with their third quarter grade. Another example, let's say a student earned a D in third quarter under this guideline. Then if they were to do 75 to 100% of the fourth quarter work, then their third quarter grade would then be increased by 2-letter grade. So that student who received a D during third quarter could receive a B then at the end for their semester grade. So we wanted to use it as an opportunity to get our students to learn, to be able to put growth ahead of grades. Not that grades are not important, but we want our students to continue to want to learn and to grow, and at the same time improve their grades in this process. And so our students would then also be able to use those grades toward athletic eligibility in the fall as well.
Making the change years ago with the board approval to the minimum for our district of a 2.5 was absolutely the best thing that we could have ever done, because there are students now who are already above that standard. And in most cases, you guys read the information based on Ohio High School Athletic Association that the bare minimum for them was a 1.0, which we've not used that for several years. So students have already been moving towards more mastery than just proficiency.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ragland. Board, are there any questions for Dr. Ragland, Mrs. Martin, as you think through the information that they've shared with us?
Hi, it's not a question. It is a statement. Again, as I've said before, as a coach, I really, really appreciate what we're doing as a district, making that minimum level 2.5. I'm blown away by that. And ever since I came on this board, I've been so appreciative, and I've been screaming at the top of my lungs to other school districts that they should be implementing something like this also. The question is for Dr. Ragland. I'm trying to think of how to word this. Were the students made aware of what was going to happen in this fourth quarter, where they could raise their grades a couple levels by doing, whatever needed to be done in the fourth quarter? And on the other hand, were the students aware that you were going to take their third quarter grades and use those as a semester grade, where knowing some of my kids, if they had an A, now they'd say, okay, I'm not going to do anything this fourth quarter because I know. So I don't know, was that addressed? You're still on mute.
Because this is all new to us. Yes, our students are aware.
Mr. McCall.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, sir. One of the things that I mentioned in the beginning, we had to try to make sure the news traveled fast to our students. That's why all of the executives and all of the administrators, as well as the teachers, were articulating to students and calling their homes, letting them know what the new methods were and what the new parameters were. The Ohio High School Athletic Association was really our partner with all districts, saying, you will have to use, if you're trying to talk about eligibility, you'll have to use third quarter as your eligibility magnet. The other part of that, they did mention that you can strengthen your academics by using fourth quarter assessments and fourth quarter grades. One of the things that we didn't want to do, if you notice the billboards in the community, Mrs. Denny and I worked on crafting a billboard that would keep motivating students. And so basically the billboards say, the schools are closed, but keep working. And even though the governor says the brick and mortar is shut down, we didn't want kids to lose sight or lose favor of what they were really working towards, which would be having a strong academic foundation. So all of these things go into play, and there's been a team of people that have been working on this since day one, trying to make sure that we didn't load students up with a lot of failing grades, which means they would automatically stop. The other part of that, we decided to stay away from the pass-fail. The NCAA says that you can use pass-fail for eligibility. We stayed away from pass-fail because most of you know that with the passing grade, the NCAA will say your passing grade is a D, which is the lowest grade that you can achieve. We wanted to have something more robust than pass-fail, which that could possibly knock kids out of scholarship opportunities. It may send them back to the drawing board with the NCAA saying you got a 26 on the ACT, now you have to get a 28 in order to meet the eligibility requirements and not sit out a year or sit out 2 years, depending on what the sport may be. So we put a lot of things in place, and some districts made the option of going pass-fail. We did not think that would be fair for any student, not just student athletes, but any student in the district.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Is there anything else? Mr. Smith, is there anything else you'd like to add?
This actually can wait until the end, Doc, so that you can get through the resolutions. And thank you for letting me go out of order with the agenda.
Oh, no problem at all. No problem. It was, let me take myself. I think it was appropriate to do it at that time because it kind of blended right in with the National Teachers Appreciation. And like you say, we probably want to make it a National Teachers Appreciation for all that they have done and readjust it in such a short time on such short notice. Having said that, the next item on our agenda is 9.03, which is the resolution for National School Nurse Day, May the 6th, 2020. I'd like to ask Mrs. Ruggles to read the resolution, and then board a motion to approve the resolution would be in order.
My pleasure to read the resolution, given that my daughter is a nurse, so thank you for the opportunity.
Mrs. Ruggles, speak a little louder, please.
Whereas it is proper to acknowledge school nurses for their professional contribution to encourage and support a healthy environment and education for our nation's youth and for students and staff of the Winton Woods City School District. And whereas school nurses provide a vital role to the institution of public education through their unique expertise for managing primary and preventative healthcare, and whereas school nurses are diligent, motivated, caring professionals who influence and promote a healthy school environment that is safe and conducive to learning, be it therefore resolved this 27th day of April 2020 that the Winton Woods City School District Board of Education hereby recognizes the continued effort, commitment, and resolve of school nurses to make a difference and proclaims May 6, 2020 as National School Nurse Day in the Winton Woods City School District, adopted this 27th day of April 2020.
Thank you, Mrs. Ruggles. A motion to approve the resolution will be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution, National School Nurse Day, May 6th, 2020, as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Mrs. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Dr. John.
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. The next item on our agenda is 9.04, which is the resolution for National School Nutrition Employee Week, May the 4th through the 8th, 2020. I'd like to ask Mr. Birdie to read this resolution, and then board, a motion to approve the resolution will be in order.
Yeah, School Nutrition Employee Week official proclamation. Whereas nutritious meals at the school are an essential part of the school day, and whereas the staff of the district schools meals and nutrition department are committed to providing healthful, nutritious meals to the district's children, and whereas the men and women who prepare and serve school meals help nurture our children through their daily interaction and support, and whereas the week of May 4th through 8th, 2020 is School Nutrition Employee Week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Winton Woods City School District expresses its deep appreciation to the valuable employees and commends their good work on behalf of children. Adopted this 27th day of April, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Birdie. Board, a motion is in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for School Nutrition Employee Week, May 4th through the 8th, 2020, as presented.
I second.
Thank you. It's been motioned and second.
Hey, Dr. Johnson, this is Jeff again. I'd like to make a quick comment.
Yes, absolutely.
Up on the school district website right now, it says that there have been over 70,000 meals distributed during this time. And I think that that's a huge number. And that's a huge task by the Mr. Doctor and his staff and team, and any administration people that have assisted in that, or volunteers that have helped in doing that, and making sure the children of our school district have been fed during this time when they don't have those lunches available to them during a normal school day. So I think this is huge, and this is a great service that our school district is providing to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Birdie, for making that point. I was going to make the exact point that during these days that we've had, didn't have school, they've still been working diligently, preparing meals, delivering meals, and delivering them now twice a week, giving anyone 18 and under a meal. That's anybody, whether they're in our school, going to our school or not. So it is remarkable what they've been able to do, and we just applaud our Mr. Doctor and his team for what they do. They do absolutely a phenomenal job. So are there any other questions or discussion or comments at this time?
I'd also add that I think that it was very, I don't know, I really appreciate the administration for thinking about how to be efficient, especially when there were breaks coming up, holiday breaks, to make sure to give students packaged meals for over more than one day. So just really thinking about the efficiency of staff and how to move into action to make sure that the community is served and make sure that the utilization of staff is used appropriately during this time.
In addition to that,
Absolutely.
we were working on creating a level of efficiency. And if you remember the first segments that came out as it relates to child nutrition, we were delivering meals Monday through Friday. And we scaled back to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday because our goal was not just to distribute meals, but distribute them with a level of integrity, and also cut costs because it cost us to pay people to distribute those meals. And then we went to the last version where we're still distributing 5 meals, and special kudos to Mr. Doctor as well as Mr. Denny. When I gave them the charge of rolling out another plan, I said, guys, how do we figure out to cut costs, but also distribute the same amount of meals? And they did not bat an eye. They just went right with it. And so I appreciate those guys very much, because we went down to 2 days of distributing food, but it's 5 days worth of food that's being distributed. That's how you come up with that 70,000 meals that Mr. Birdie alluded to.
Right. Absolutely fantastic job all around, because it does take a team and strategic thought in order to make all of that happen, and to get to all of those stops at the right time, and also keep in mind we'll be doing the summer, nutrition is the mission as well. So I've seen something on the website about that too, and how that was going to continue as well. So you know, just all around, it's just kudos to everyone that's involved with that piece of it. So we did not call for the vote. That was questions and discussion. So Mr. Seymour, would you please call the vote?
Mrs. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan's,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson.
Aye. That vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 10.01, which is the Board of Education reports and legislative reports. Board, I did forward to you all some legislative information that I have been receiving, so you could check your email. As I get them, I'll just forward them to you. I get them from Mr. Smith. I also get them for OSBA and the National School Board Association. So if for some reason they don't come through to you completely, just email me back or hit me up and I'll send it back out to you again. But I have been sending those out to you so you can read them at your leisure. And they're mostly informative. And it also, I found it interesting in this time where many states are shut down, how you know, then how some states are doing as far as their education and re-entering schools. Mr. Smith sent me an article about that one, and how different states are planning on doing, you know, the reopening and like that. So some of the things in the articles are pretty interesting. Food for thought in how we might consider some of our management, but I do think that we have an excellent team that is looking at all of the different ways to be sure that our children are adequately served, either through nutrition or through education. And so just kind of look at those legislative reports. If you have any questions or if something didn't come through all the way, just let me know and I'll send them to you again. With that being said, the next item on the agenda is 10.02, the Great Oaks Career Technical Center report. Mr. Birdie, do you have any information you'd like to share at this time?
Actually, I don't. I mean, they're dealing with the same issues that we are. The last meeting was remote, just like this is being done to provide safety for everybody. I think they're dealing with the same issues that we are as a school district. And, you know, how do you make sure that children are getting the educational opportunities that they need to provide them the opportunities that they should have. So nothing to pass out at this time.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is 11.01, which is the board motions and recommendations. And board, I'm not aware of any board motions or recommendations that we need to discuss it at this time. Does anybody have anything that's, you know, on the tip of their tongue, top of their head, maybe that they didn't mention to me coming into this meeting? I don't have anything. So if no one else has anything, we'll move on.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
This is Courtney
Okay.
Wilson. And at the
Hi, Courtney.
beginning of the meeting, WWTA representative having technical difficulties, but she joined mid-meeting. Her name is Tasha James. She's a teacher at the elementary school. So I just wanted to let her know that she's also on the call.
All right. Hi, Tasha. We can take time right now if you'd like to address the board. I'm having technical difficulties too. I've got two computers. Neither one of them have let me in, and I'm on the phone. So if you would like to take a few minutes right now at this time, we're under unusual circumstances. So we're trying to be as efficient as possible, but still cover as much information as possible. So if you'd like to address the board at this time, you have the floor.
Hello. I wasn't prepared to talk actually, but I do appreciate what is being said about the teachers, because we are in unusual circumstances right now, and we're trying to do as much as we can and possible to make sure we stay connected with the families. It's just, you know, we do get a little bit frustrated because we do care about our families so much. So the parents we don't hear from, we just really would like to if you guys have any ideas on what we could do to get connected with those parents as well, because for instance, I've called a student of mine quite a few times and left messages, and I still haven't heard from them. So it's just that part, like, we're really worried about the well-being of our kids and families. So, but we do appreciate the support that you all have about us, saying that we're working and doing everything we can to make sure the kids are getting the proper education that they need at this moment.
Thank you, Mrs. James. We do appreciate what the teachers do for our district, and that should come across as a resounding, we appreciate you. And I do believe that not just myself, I've had a lot of family and friends that contact me is like, okay, when this first started, how do I get this whole thing started? How do I get on a schedule and like that? And it's encouraging to hear people now appreciate what a teacher does. They have 25 of those children in their classroom, or 27, and so parents have 2 or 3, and it's we appreciate what you do. So it should come across as great appreciation. So I'm glad that you feel that, and you could take that message back to your fellow teachers that this school board appreciates what our teachers do and what they bring to the classroom and how they care about our kids.
Yes,
and that not just from me as the board president, that's all of us as a board and the superintendent, the treasurer, and administrators. We're building a staff of people who care about our kids. That's what we want. So,
thank you. We appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, thank you so much. Anyone else have anything that we need to squeeze into this little space right here for board motions, recommendations? Okay, having nothing else, let's move on to 12.01, which is comments from the Board of Education Superintendent and the Treasurer. Let's start first with Mr. McGowan's. Would you like to have board comments at this time?
The only comment is just to piggyback on what you said. Miss James, thank you so much. I mean, the teachers, you guys are on the front lines. Just like the superintendent says, some of us have 2, 3, 4 kids. You've got 25 or 27. So thank you so much for what you do. Please make sure all of your peers and your coworkers understand how much we appreciate everything that you guys are doing as a board.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. McGowan. And next up, we'll have Dr. Cupoletti. Do you have any comments at this time?
Yes, I do. First of all, these are, of course, unprecedented times. The leadership under Mr. Smith, his administrative team, stepped up, and I really respect what they've done. And our community is so much better because they are here. And our teachers, the same, and our staff, the same. And so I greatly appreciate the work that the Winton Woods staff, teachers, and administration have done for our community. And the community should understand what a wonderful job has been done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cupoletti. Mr. Birdie, any comments?
Just to reiterate that, Ms. James, thank you for what you all do as teachers. Mr. Doctor and his team from the nutrition standpoint, it's phenomenal. I'd like to point out Rhonda Hobbs and the IT team. I think they've had their hands full with distribution of Chromebooks and things like that, as well as getting us set up to have this meeting tonight. So thank you to them too, and Mr. Smith and Mr. Seymour and all of their staff as well. So thank you all for what you do every day.
Yes, thank you. All right, Mrs. Ruggles.
Yes, I also want to reiterate a lot of what everybody has said, but maybe take a little different approach to some certain things. So thank you, Mr. Smith and Mr. Seymour, for all that you do to keep us moving along efficiently. And Mr. Denny, I know that these are very hard times for staff and family. So I want to also send a shout out to the teachers, but also to the parents. to the parents who are stepping up and trying to work with us and being very understanding, that we needed to make a quick pivot and a shift to this online platform. But I would have to say that looking back when we first started going to Chromebooks and Academy of Global Studies, I remember when it first started, we were only hitting a small population of students with the technology, with the rigorous curriculum. But over the years, I've seen how that has expanded down to all the way down to the second grade. A lot of school districts were caught off guard because they did not have the technology, they did not have a plan in place. But we have actually, I knew that we had a plan for 2 through 6 that was coming, or 2 through 5, I'm not sure, but we had already planned for it. So preparation and planning, I think, positioned us very nicely for this COVID-19 pandemic. So I have to say kudos to Mr. Smith and his team for expanding these opportunities for more students than just a smaller group of students. So I think overall we are in a better position because our students are getting introduced to the technology early. So thank you very much. And again, teachers, much appreciation to the pivot that has had to happen. I know, at the collegiate level, when we had to pivot to online, it caught a lot of people off guard, and to the teaching and learning staff trying to find creative ways to make sure that the students are not penalized for this situation, but there's a fair way to help them continue to learn and grow and master the content of the information. I know at the college level, we went to pass fail, but for undergrad, but you have to really understand the students to know, okay, how does pass fail hurt our athletes? How does pass fail hurt, kids who are going into competitive major? So kudos to the whole team for the thoughtfulness and putting our students and families first.
Thank you, Mrs. Ruggles. Mr. Seymour, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Seymour. Mr. Smith, would you have anything that you want to closing remarks?
Yes, Madam President and Board, I would like to request that State of the Schools be postponed for May 5th. I would like to hold it later, maybe at the 1st of August, so we can have more robust information about how our students did in summer school, how we worked with the Chromebooks, how the technology has enhanced our work. Every day it seems like there's a new transition from the governor's office. And I know he's working diligently to make sure that the district is safe and all students are safe. But, coming with these different positions every day when we're on superintendent's calls, just it kind of rocks you a little bit, because kids are thinking they're going to have a traditional prom and they're not going to. Kids are thinking they're going to have a traditional graduation and they're not going to. And I would have to say, every time there's a change in a conversation from the governor's office or from the Ohio Department of Education, the executive team jumps right in there, and they are absolutely a marvelous group of people to work with, along with the teachers, the bus drivers who are distributing the lunches, all of the support people along the way, the nurses that take the temperatures of people every single day. We even have a process now that any employee that wants to go into a building, there has to be a form supplied. It has to be 24-hour notice, and it has to be endorsed by the superintendent's office. Your temperature has to be taken prior to entering, with the purpose of why are you going to do it. And then finally, we do have a very, very big transition plan coming up, because we have to figure out how to retrieve the teachers' personal items that they still have in the schools, and also the students' personal items. So there's a committee working on how to make that happen while we're also keeping the social distancing in play. And then finally, there is another committee working on how does this look for the reopening of school in the fall. We're not waiting to see what happens in August. We're putting plans in place. Either we'll stay virtual or we'll go in, and we have to figure out the social distancing piece of how to make sure that families are safe and kids are safe and everything works in that vein. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And just from my perspective, I think we all kind of are feeling the same thing about the teamwork that has gone into making all of this work. And like with IT, I was just floored because I know I talked to Mr. Smith whenever I got the email that they were going to be giving Chromebooks out to all of the kids. I'm like, wait a minute, what are we doing? But, I knew that we had the technology, for them to use within the building, but I didn't know we had enough one-on-one for everybody to take one home. And that is, back to what Mrs. Rugler said, that meant we were ahead of the game. And that's because we had some forward-thinking people that were working in the ranks before all of this even came, about. We knew, I was very aware that 7 through 12 had the technology and that they had Chromebooks or computers or whatever that were, distributed for them to use. But I wasn't so aware that the second grade, all the way down to second grade, had Chromebooks too. And I just think that that's remarkable, and the distribution process that and the how thorough everybody was with making sure that information was logged for each Chromebook that went out and who's responsible for this Chromebook and everything. I mean, it was really very wonderfully executed. And with our teaching and learning individuals, Mrs. Martin and Dr. Ragland, I can't say enough about how much we appreciate how you all are working to maintain the academic integrity of what we've started. You don't want to start something and then, something happens and it all falls apart and then somebody points out, see, I told you so. But because you all have worked so hard to maintain that academic integrity, it really makes a huge difference. I have received emails and calls from parents. Mr. Smith kind of talked about it a little bit, worried because there's not going to be a prom or there's not going to be a traditional graduation. But I think Mr. Smith said it at the beginning of our meeting that, and I don't know if you want to add something else to this, Mr. Smith, about how the state is working to mandate that there's some sort of graduation procedure or ceremony or something. But right now we don't have it all ironed out, and people want it to happen in May, or they want it to happen May the 2nd or May. And it probably won't happen at that time, but it will happen. We're working, we've got the people in place that are working. And I just hope that we can, have some trust from the community that everybody is working toward the same goal, and that's to make sure that each student is able to learn at their greatest potential and that every student counts every day, But Mr. Smith talked about it a little bit in the beginning about the graduation, and I know that they're working trying to work out all of the details with respect to that. But I do appreciate the state of the schools, Mr. Smith, being postponed from May the 5th, because I think that when you shut everything down at once, and then you just can't open it back up all at once. I mean, there's still people Ohio is still documenting cases, Indiana, Kentucky, of positive coronavirus individuals. So until that flatlines in some sort of format, it doesn't make sense to open it up. People are walking around asymptomatic. It doesn't make sense to open things back up, with like grand openings and everybody is back out into the streets, or we're going to have a second wave that's probably worse than the first wave. So we have to be wise in how we do things with our kids, I know parents want the prom, parents want the graduation, and I do too, but I wanted to, first and foremost, I want us all to be safe, and I want us all to be healthy, and I want us to be wise, and so having said that, the only thing we can do is put all of our minds together to figure out what that looks like. And like Mr. Smith said, the governor is making changes, if you watch the reports, they're changing, weekly, maybe not daily, but every other day or weekly on what we can expect. So I appreciate our administrators and not looking at a transition plan that's going to be safe for our teachers and students to come in and gather their belongings. Because they want their things back, but you don't want a big flood of people coming in there at the same time. You've already cleaned and sanitized the buildings. What does that look like? So, we just appreciate all of those things. So, that's just my end comment there. The next item on the agenda is 13.01. And board, there is not a need for an executive session this evening, so we will not stay on the line and have any discussions for that matter. I would like to sincerely thank the Waycross community media for coming in and recording our regular board meeting tonight under these unusual set of circumstances. And for everyone who is on the line, whether you'll be on for telephone or whether you made it to the Zoom meeting and you're on camera, we just really appreciate you tuning in and coming to the meeting in this way. With that said, I'd like to call the meeting of the Winton Woods City School Board of Education regular meeting for Monday, April the 24th, 2020 adjourned. Thank you. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Stay safe, healthy, and well. Good evening, and the meeting is now adjourned.